Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie, very
Beautiful
much.
scene here in the Rose Garden.
It is. It's a beautiful place.
It's been a challenging year for the country.
Right.
And over the past couple of weeks, you've had a number of events at the White House to bolster your support for law enforcement.
Right.
But as we see mass retirements and a number of police officers ambushed around the country, what are the steps that your administration is going to take forward from this point on to make sure that our police officers feel that they are supported?
So we're very strong on law and order, and we're calling these very liberal Democrats usually. In all, we don't have any Republicans involved, to be honest, but their cities run by liberal Democrats like Seattle. I don't know if you know, but we were going in there the following morning, and they heard that, and we told them. We said, we're going in, and they sent the police in, and they solved it, but we would have done it. In Minnesota, in Minneapolis, we had National Guard after watching what happened, where the police, they didn't run, they were told to run, they were told to leave. The police would have been perfect, they would have settled it, they're great police there. I know some of the people in that force, but they were told, run, leave the police station. They took over the police station, these people.
Yeah.
But after going through that for about 4 days, 5 days, we had the National Guard, and it was like cutting through butter. It was like a knife cutting through butter. It was so easy, and it stopped. And we're doing many things. We did on the statues. Nobody's playing with federal statues anymore. They go to jail for a period of 10 years. And by the way, it's not a negotiated sentence. It's you go to jail for 10 years if you knock down. And since that was 2.5 weeks ago, we haven't had any problem. But we're now looking at having to do something. You know, we have to be asked to go into a city like Chicago, which is so ridiculous, where they had like 68 shootings and 18 deaths over the weekend. It's not even comprehensible. Worse than Afghanistan, worse than any war zone. And so we're supposed to be asked, she is supposed to call the mayor, Lightfoot, Lori, she's supposed to call and she's supposed to say, we need your help. We call her, would you like to have us go in? And they don't want us. And I say, what's going on? We are going to have to do something very comprehensive because we don't want to sit back and watch this.
So what is that going to be?
Easy.
What does that mean?
Well, it means sending people in. Just sending people in to clean it up.
So that'd be nationalizing the National Guard?
By the way, the Chicago police are great. They're great. But they're not being allowed to do their job. The greatest example is New York. What's happening in New York? Crime is up 358%, shootings. Nobody's ever seen numbers like this. They're not allowed to do their job. And if they do their job, if they do it well and it gets a little bit rough, they're afraid that they're going to go to jail for the rest of their life. I mean, it's you can have a bad apple, but what we do, because what happened was terrible with, as you know, George Floyd. What happened there was terrible. It was, and everybody acknowledges that. But what this has done to the world, what this has done to law and order, and when you look at St. Louis with 2 people that came out, they were going to be beat up badly if they were lucky. Okay, if they were lucky. They were going to be beat up badly, and the house was going to be totally ransacked and probably burned down like they tried to burn down churches. And these people were standing there, never used it, and they were legal, the weapons. And now I understand somebody local, they want to prosecute these people. It's a disgrace. So we are very tough on it. We are dealing behind the scenes. We're saying you better get going. There's a point at which we're allowed to go in, and that point is rapidly being reached. But we were going into Seattle. We did go into, if you look at the Minneapolis event, you remember that event when they lined up and they just walked right through those streets like there was nothing, the National Guard. But there's a point at which we will have to do it because we just have to do it for the good of the country. And a lot of people say, don't do it, that's a local problem, that's good for you politically. I don't care if it's good for us or bad for us. We can't let this continue on.
Well, what would be your message to the men and women who are still getting up in the morning and putting on their uniform and going out and doing the right thing while a number of people are understandably retiring and they're stuck in these cities that are run by Democrats where the crime continues to increase and there seems to be no backing for the police?
Well, there's never been a time, and this has been going on for years. You know, it's gotten worse. It's gotten crazy where now they want to just abolish police forces, right? Defund and abolish, that's their term. Defund and they mean it. I mean, I watched Biden. He has a campaign now where he wants to bring energy where you can't use petroleum products. You're not going to have any factories working, and he wants to do it at a very short period of time. That means Texas is gone. That means all of the jobs. We have millions and millions of jobs, but it's not a strong form of energy. I understand alternate, and I understand every form of energy very well. I understand wind, I understand solar. You don't have the power. You don't have the capacity. We would have to close down half of our factories. What they're doing, and basically that's a Bernie Sanders deal. He's gone crazier than Bernie Sanders. And I don't think it's good for votes either. I don't even think it's good politically. And then what are they going to do with airplanes? You know, no more flying? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So they just came out. He moved up the date 15 years. And they want to go, I guess, all green by a certain time. The problem is you're not going to have any factories because the capacity is not there. You can do some alternate energy. You can do alternate. You can do many forms of energy. You have a lot of different forms of energy. But it's not going to get us there. We're the #1 in the world by far. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be able to keep us there if they do that. But these people have gone crazy. Now with law and order, it's the same thing. With law and order, what they're doing, and it's so unfair to the police. And I say to the police, you are loved, you are respected. This is a small group of crazy people. Just stay where you are. It's going to be turned around. It's going to be a turn. You're going to have, people better be very careful because you are going to have a backlash that's going to be incredible. People better be very careful what they wish for because the American people are not going to take it very much longer.
We want to shift gears now to the Wuhan coronavirus. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, claims that she wants to reopen schools safely, but has she contacted you at all to try and work with you to do that?
With her, it's just words. It's just words. She's not going to do that. We have to open schools. It's up to the governors, and we're pushing them strongly through Department of Education and me. We have to open up schools, and one thing we've learned a lot about this virus, we did the right thing. We saved millions of lives by doing what we did. By banning China when nobody else wanted me to, we saved hundreds of thousands of lives. We've done it right, but now we have to keep open, but we have to open up schools, a big part of it. And one thing we've learned, if you're under 18 years old, you're in very good shape. Very, very few instances where there's a big problem. We have to open our schools, and we have to open them up in the fall as soon as they're ready, which is getting to be very close.
So you've repeatedly justified your decision to shut down the economy on behalf of saving millions of lives. So walk us through the steps of how you are now comfortable reopening the economy and reopening schools in the fall. What happened in between there?
Well, that big push would have been a disaster. And we knew nothing about the disease. If you remember, there was a time we knew nothing. Now we know it affects older people, especially older people with a problem, with diabetes or a heart problem. So we've learned a lot about this disease. And we're going to have fires, and sometimes embers, but sometimes you're going to have fires, and we're going to put them out. But we did the right thing because I think we would have had 2.5, 3 million people dead right now. We have 135,000. It's too many. One is too many. Mm-hmm. It all came out of China. They should have never allowed this to happen. You're going to see some bad things happening with respect to how this did happen. It's a disgrace that it was allowed to happen. But it is what it is. And we took, take a look at ventilators. We didn't have ventilators. We make now thousands of ventilators a month. Many thousands of ventilators. We're helping other countries. We have more than we need. We have every place. There's not one person in the country that needed a ventilator that didn't get it. And you have to understand, we started off with, we didn't have ventilators. We have 11 different companies building ventilators right now, and really good ones, to a point where we're helping many other countries that will never be able to do a ventilator. It's hard to build, it's expensive, it's big. Take a look at what's happened with testing. We test more than any country in the world by many times. Now, that is both good and bad, and you can spot what's happening, and you can spot, so to speak, trends. Mm-hmm. But the bad is that we have more cases. The reason we have more cases is because we go out looking for cases. So we tested 45 million people. If we tested half, we'd have half the number of cases. If we tested half of that, when I was with the heads of numerous countries, but Mexico was just, he was a great guy, but basically their testing is somebody's sick, they have symptoms or they have a problem, or they go to the hospital, they get tested. But they don't report, thousands of cases all over the country like we do. So the testing is good, but what the testing does do is it gives the fake news fodder to go after you. Cases, cases, cases. For instance, if they did testing like we're doing in Brazil or in Russia or in China or in any of these places, you'd see numbers that would blow us away. You'd see numbers that would be, but they don't do that. They do it at the hospital, they do it at doctors' offices, they do it locally when somebody's not feeling well. We test everybody. And probably the right thing to do, but it gives the fake news a lot of ammunition.
But what about the therapeutic side? Are you still taking hydroxychloroquine, first of all? And do you want to comment on the new studies that show that drug has actually been very effective in treating COVID patients?
So the radical left, Democrats, whoever you call them, anything you want, they had a thing about hydroxychloroquine because of the fact that I one day said, hey, I think it's good. I heard good things. There were some very good studies. They went after it, and then they do tests where they test 89-year-old people that are close to death. In one case, they said they took it and he died immediately, that he was close to death. They came out with these terrible and phony, totally phony studies, only because I was pushing it because I thought it could help people. And I did. I took it for a period of 2 weeks because I was in a White House that had a couple of people got, were positive, had zero impact, zero. I mean, I'm still here, let's put it that way. And I would take it again if for any reason I thought, and it's really something that you take early or before. Frontline doctors take it. A lot of people like it. Since then, we got a couple of phony reports, and everybody said, oh, no good. Then, since then, some very good reports have come out. One report from the Ford Clinic, which is a big deal, the Ford system, medical system, in Michigan came out. It was unbelievable. Plus, we have a lot of doctors saying it works great. We have one doctor in Westchester, New York. He said he has 500 patients, and every one of them lived. You've seen that. But we've had a lot of good reports, the French study, and I say it works. But here's the thing. It's been used for malaria for 40 years. It doesn't hurt you to take it. You have to take that, zinc, and Z-Pak if you're feeling the lungs are in trouble. You take Z-Pak for 3 or 4 days. But I took it for 2 weeks, the hydroxy, and I had zero impact. All I know is I didn't get it. So I don't want to knock on those columns if they were wood, but no, they're not. They're concrete or they're stone or
you
something.
Can pretend.
But I'll pretend they're wood.
Yep.
So I took it, and for 2 weeks exactly, a 2-week regimen, it was no problem. And I didn't get it. But the one thing is it's been tested for many years. Plus, it's a very inexpensive drug. It's been around for so long. And it's incredible on malaria. And malaria countries, they say, are, where people take hydroxy, have an unbelievably low rate. Now, you'd have to check that. Somebody will check it, but that's what I've heard. But some great tests came out. The only reason, Katie, that the people went after it was because I was for it. I was only for it for one reason, because if it makes people better, and I would love to say take hydroxy, it costs almost nothing, and give it to all the people in Florida and Texas, people that are not people that are advanced with a problem, because we have remdesivir, we have other things too. A lot of great things are happening in terms of therapeutics and vaccines. Tremendous stories are happening. But with the hydroxy, it's almost free, and I'd give it to people before they get it or when they have the early signs. I think you'd see a big difference, but tremendous tests are coming out, tremendous studies are coming out.
So the reason why we're in this situation is because of China. Where is the administration on encouraging American companies who are operating and manufacturing in China, especially PPE? How are you enticing them to come back to the United States to manufacture those types of goods? Because a number of these boxes you buy at the store for masks and such say made in China.
But we're also making them here now. We have plants making all over, like Honeywell and companies that you wouldn't think of for making this kind of stuff. They're making the certain types of masks, especially the doctors, for what the doctors need in the hospital, the 95s. They are doing, I went up to one of the factories in Maine, and it's incredible, one of the plants, and it's incredible what all of these companies are doing. We're starting to make a lot. But you'll be seeing over the next 2 weeks, I'm doing something that's extremely bold, and you'll see, I think you'll be extremely impressed by it. Look, I've been fighting this with China for a long time.
Yeah.
You had the globalists, they want to make everything in China. We can make our pencils here. We don't need 57 pencils for every kid, you can have 2. And look, I'm very upset with China. I think what China did is a disgrace. Whether they knew it or not, I won't get into that. But one thing, they knew it well enough that it didn't get into the rest of China. But it did get out to the rest of the world, including Europe and the U.S. Then they tried to blame it on Europe. Then they tried to blame it on American soldiers. They did everything. It's a China virus. Whether you like it or not, it's a China virus. And you got 20 other names you can give it. But I am very angry with China.
So just to reiterate, you have something coming on enticing American companies out of China.
Something very strong.
Okay, one more question on China, and then we'll get to the 2020 campaign. The Chinese and the Iranians just announced a military agreement to work together. Just wanted to get your response on that.
Well, we'll see, and we may have to stop doing business with both of them. We may, if that's the fact, I'll look at that and I'll see. But if that's the case, let China get rich with Iran. We just don't do business with them. That's fine. As far as I'm concerned, that would be the best solution anyway. We've lost $500 billion a year with China every year for many years. Many years. We lose hundreds of billions, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars with China. You didn't do business with China, can I tell you something? You made a lot of money for this country. You made a lot of money for this country. China has ripped us off from day one. I campaigned on it. We made a great China deal where they have to buy $240 billion, including $50 billion, 40 to 50 billion with our farmers. The problem is the ink wasn't dry on this deal. The ink wasn't even dry when the plague came in from China. So if they want to make a deal with Iran, that's fine. Let's not do business with either of them. That would be just fine with me.
All right, so speaking of business with foreign entities and foreign countries, here at home you are up for re-election. It's been an unconventional election year. What is your vision should you win a second term?
Well, it's unconventional for one big reason, because of these mail-in ballots. Paterson, New Jersey just had an election, and 20% of the ballots were a fraud and people are going to jail. You have other elections where they're indicting mailmen because the mailmen are stealing them and selling them. You have others where they're, even the 2016, 1% are unaccounted for of the mail-in ballots. This election's going to be a fraud if they do that. Now, it's different from an absentee where you go in and you write in and you go through a whole procedure and you do it like I'm working at the White House and I'm in Florida, voting in Florida. So it's a much different situation. Absentee is great because you have to go through a process. These mail-ins, think of it, some Democrat governor sends in millions of ballots all over the state, like a California, millions of ballots. Who are they sending them to? Nobody has any idea. They're sending them to dogs. They actually have sent to dogs. They sent him, a friend of mine from Westchester County, his son died, unfortunately, great son. He died 7 years ago. And my friend called up a couple of nights ago. He said, my son Robert just got sent a ballot, a mail-in ballot. He said, what do I do? I said, save it, give it to me. I want to use it because we're saying that this election, we cannot have a fair election if we're going to have millions of ballots. It's not only where they send them, it's where they don't send them. So you have a Republican neighborhood and you have a Democrat governor and they happen to skip that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It's a fraud, and it's so easy. It will be a rigged election. Yeah, you look at what happened in California, Katie, but look at just a few weeks ago, Paterson, New Jersey. 20% of the ballots were fraud. People are being locked up left and right. Look at the postmen that are being indicted for for terrible crimes. So you have states run by Democrats and in many cases run by Republicans too, and I don't know what's going to happen there, but you have states run by Democrats who are sending out millions of ballots, and then they come back. There's no, what you should have is voter ID, and you have to go to vote unless you can't vote, and then you should get an absentee ballot, go through a process. So it's a very, to me, that's the most dangerous thing about this election, because we're going to win the election. When you look at Joe, he doesn't know what he's doing. Everybody knows it. He's been doing this for 47 years. Now all of a sudden he turned green. Okay, he turned green. He's become a greenie. And he's going to have all our businesses within a short period of time working off of a wind. We'll close up 90% of the factories in our country if they do that. And Texas will be out of business. We'll lose 10 million energy jobs. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But Joe Biden, for 47 years, now all of a sudden, he's become green. And in all fairness, Joe doesn't know where he is. You know that better than anybody.
All right. Well, on that note, Mr. President, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kay.